I don't remember the last time I was this excited because we just got in 4 of the brand new MacBook Pros, and guess what? We have 4 more coming in with different configurations, but today we are gonna be focusing on the base model 14-inch MacBook Pro and comparing it to the $1,800 MacBook Pro that it directly replaces, which actually has a lot of upgrades compared to the $1,300 model, and we are gonna test everything from the design, the displays, the speakers, the webcams, benchmarks, including real-world performance for photo editing, video editing, Xcode. We're gonna test out the fans and the heat and a lot more. My heart is beating as I open up this 14-inch. We've been waiting for this for so long, and we're actually doing something that we've never done before. We're actually giving away a 14-inch MacBook Pro, and it is extremely easy to win one. I don't care where you are in the world, I will pay for the shipping. Any import fees will take care of that if you're outside of the US. And if you guys wanna win one, and not the base model actually, we're gonna give you a spec'd up model with upgraded SSDs and performance. All you have to do is be subscribed to MaxTech and comment below on our launch week video. So we are gonna choose after this launch week one of those videos and one comment, and you will receive one of these machines that are more powerful than this one. Man, Vadim, I've been trying to not say anything. I'm trying to mention our giveaway. This thing feels incredible. The design looks great. It doesn't feel that thick or chunky. It has a little bit of weight to it, but not bad. But definitely feels different because it's all flat. Look at that logo right there. I love that they put it somewhere because they got rid of it on the inside. There's no rough edges. There's no sharp edges to dig in. Let's go ahead and pull out this cable. Let's do the boring stuff first. This is a nice cable. I guess for the upgraded price, you're getting something nicer. Of course, we got MagSafe. That is exciting. All right, get out of here. All right, here you go. This is the charger. And by the way, if you're ordering from Apple's website, make sure you don't buy this one because this is the 67 watt charger. Spend the extra 20 bucks to get the 96 watt for fast charging. But I have to say, this cable is very nice. I also want to mention to you guys that with these videos coming out, with each video that we're putting out, we are adding new benchmarks, new tests, so it's gonna stay very interesting. And with that, when you comment below to win one of these, let us know what you guys would like to see in the upcoming video. Wait a second, how is this not thicker? Look at this! On Apple's website, it says this 14-inch is actually slightly thinner than the 13-inch. But look at that, Vadim. Can you see that difference with the lid?
It's massive.
What the heck? All right, well, we have different feet, right? We have these pads now.
Yeah, they're big.
Instead of this 13-inch. Okay, let's look at it this way. All right, Vadim, what do you see now? I gotta get down over here.
Because of the way it's shaped, the old one actually looks thinner.
It looks thinner because it tapers everywhere, but
it actually is thinner.
Okay, let's look at it this way. Yeah, it's actually thinner at the thickest part here, but when you look at this or you just hold it in your hand, it's pretty chunky. I gotta be honest, guys, the old model did look a lot more sleek with the concave design, but because they got rid of that, that gave them way more space for one, bigger batteries, better fans, better speakers, and all of that stuff that we are gonna test. Now, another thing I just noticed, looking into these vents, on the 13-inch MacBook Pros, they only have exhaust vents on one side and then the other, but the new 14-inch has vents all the way through for great exhaust. And then as far as these intake ports, they are slightly shorter, but a lot deeper and wider for more easy airflow getting sucked in. You know what, guys? I have to do this. I have to take off the covers on these to see the insides. This is something that I have not seen anybody post. So let's grab our iFixit kit and see what lies inside of here. This video is not sponsored by iFixit, by the way, but it is by our merch. And we actually have new M1 Pro and M1 Max shirts, the MaxTech M1 Pro shirts. So you guys can check that out in the description if you guys want to support us. And this thing is done. If you guys know about these Macs, these are such a pain to open up. I'm interested to see if the 14-inch is a lot easier. All right, there goes the 13-inch model. As you guys could see, we have dual fans for this $1,800 one. For the $1,300 one that the M1 replaced, you only had a single fan. I'm excited to see if this is gonna be a lot easier to open and see those fans that supposedly have up to 50% more airflow. Let's get this thing opened up here. By the way, guys, we actually have another exciting announcement. This is a crazy week. We are launching short form content. So if you want to see little clips like this one right now before they go up on a video, you guys can see it early by subscribing to the Max Tech Shorts channel or TikTok or Instagram. If you guys want to see those videos, we'll have links down in the description below. All right, guys, the moment of truth. Let's pull up. All right, we got some clips there.
That's so much easier.
That was, you guys didn't see how long it took me to get this off. All right, my heart's beating. Let's take a look. All right, look at that. Wow. So we have multiple battery packs. Look how thick those bad boys are. They're thicker than here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got these subwoofers. And looking at the fans, they look interesting because we have the smaller fan, the fans themselves look smaller. These modules, the little airflow areas look larger, and we have airflow here, but what comes out there through those extra exhaust ports? We have, as far as the heat sinks, we have one large one, and then we have the M1 Pro chip right there. Look how big that heat sink is that is covering it. Super long. I don't know what's here on the side. Here it's definitely a lot smaller. Let's see if we can peek under this sticker here. Guys, this is very scary. Hopefully we don't damage this thing before we get it open. What? It's almost empty. What the heck is that? I thought it was gonna be maybe like SSD or RAM. No, we have an Apple chip, a tiny Apple chip, some other, I don't know, transistors, and that's it. All right, now we have to open up the other side. I gotta see what's in there too. Interesting, this has something else. We have no Apple logos here. I see a Renesas chip. I wonder what that is. Looks like it's a 16-bit buffer. That's $26.45. It's a non-stock item. Takes 20 weeks to order one. If you guys know what that is, let me know. But other than that, what we're seeing are larger speaker drivers, these subs right here. If you remember previously, we didn't have 6 speaker systems for this one, so I'm excited to test that out. We also have larger enclosures here. We have what looks like to be the SSD right here at the top. So definitely, I mean, the whole thing has changed around here. Look at this. If we stack these side to side, the logic board is actually longer, which leaves less room for the batteries, even though the battery capacity is 20% larger. And I don't know about you guys, but we expected logic boards to be smaller with these new Apple Silicon chips. Now, not only that, look on this side with this fan, how much wider. It's literally twice as wide, the exhaust from this fan itself, and then on here, it's actually probably about the same, maybe a little bit more outlet. So we have more heat possibly coming out of here, and a lot better exhaust system. And I thought Apple would maybe skimp on it, but no. And after looking at this, I'm excited to see if we have a completely different cooling system for the M1 Max model and what those fans and heatsinks are set up to be. But for now, let's go ahead and shut this down and let's get into the comparison. Getting back to the fronts, look how much larger the Apple logo is. We didn't get a glowing one, but it is much bigger. And you guys can see how much larger the footprint is on the 14 compared to the 13. Let me go ahead and stack these up evenly so you guys can see it's probably about a ½ inch wider. And then on the front, maybe about a ½ inch or somewhere around there, deeper as well. On the left-hand side, we now have MagSafe. So let's test that out. That's a satisfying click right there, and I love the little LED. Now, along with that, we have 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports / USB 4 and a headphone jack. Now it's moved from the left side, which I love because I'm sitting there with the mouse and I have my headphone cable right there in the way. That is no longer gonna happen. And then looking at the opposite side, we have an HDMI port. It's not the fastest one, but it's there and it's convenient to have, along with another Thunderbolt port and an SD card reader instead of having 2 Thunderbolt ports on the right side of the older MacBook. All right, I gotta check out an SD card. Let's pop it in. Look at that, Vadim.
Yeah,
it's not going in anymore. Wow. Looks like Apple did not want to waste any space on the inside. It looks like if you want to buy an older flush mount SD for older MacBooks, it will not work because this thing barely goes in there. All right, the moment of truth. Let's open these bad boys up. There we have it. I like that sound, turns on automatically. And what's interesting is this little cutout isn't as deep as it was before. Apple even saved space there to get more internals in. Look at this, guys. The screen does not angle as much as the old one. That is very odd. And look at that notch staring me right in the face. Yeah, that thing is definitely noticeable. There's no way you are gonna miss it. But with that, look at the bezel difference right here. It looks like the side bezel is less than half as thick as a 13-inch, and then on top, it's probably like a third of the thickness. So even though we have that notch, this definitely looks much nicer. And look at the keyboard. Look at that massive escape key and how we have that double anodized black finish below. That's an extra step of anodizing the Apple has to do, which they didn't have to, but it looks great. And then of course, we do not have that touch bar anymore. We have these large function keys. As far as the feel, it basically feels the same. I can't tell any difference. The trackpads are identical, no difference there. And then the Touch ID button is now larger with the rest, and it's circular, just like the new iMacs compared to our square one from before. And now that we're all set up, I want to test out the new speakers and the webcam. But first, look at that menu bar up there. It is so much larger than on the 13-inch, even though the screen is bigger. It's actually slightly taller than the notch so that it doesn't, look weird. But the weird thing is I actually went into these settings, and what I found is that when you go and you switch out the scaling for more space, like I always do, the menu bar doesn't change. It stays huge. Everything else just gets smaller on it. So that is interesting, whereas before, it would always scale to your settings. And of course, when you go full screen, it completely disappears, so there are no distractions. And now, let's get into the speaker comparison. We have the new 6-speaker system here. Let's see how much better it sounds. All right, guys, wow, did you guys hear that? Man, I was blown away. There's a couple things I wasn't actually expecting. First off, I thought that the 14-inch was gonna be a lot louder than the 13-inch, but it's not. In fact, I actually thought that the 13-inch was louder, and that's because there's so much high frequency sound in this machine, and this one, the highs are actually a little bit more balanced. But then when I used my Apple Watch, I saw that the old MacBook Pro peaked at 79 decibels compared to 80 with the new one, and throughout that song, it is actually slightly louder on the 14-inch, so it is louder. But what really gets you is the bass. The new 6-speaker system with those dedicated woofers, wow, it's like if you have a cheap car stereo in your car and then you upgrade it and you add a dedicated 12-inch sub. That's the difference. We're hitting all those bass notes and it sounds so deep, so rich, really, really nice on the 14-inch. We're here with the 13-inch, even though this has an upgraded speaker system compared to the $1,300 M1 Mac, it does not compare, and all your bass is coming from the mids. Man, now I do wish the highs were a little bit brighter on this because I do like those bright highs, but overall, it is just a game changer. And now let's compare the webcams. I have both opened up right here, and I'm gonna switch between them as far as the video and the audio so you guys can compare which one looks better and which one sounds better. Of course, the old MacBook Pros have a 720p webcam with pretty good mics. The new 14-inch has a 1080p webcam with upgraded studio microphones, and it has an f2.0 aperture, so it should be better in low light. So right now, Vadim, shut off the lights. And now that our studio lights are off, here is how the 13-inch MacBook Pro looks. And we get some shifting once I move around. I don't know if you guys can notice the exposure changing. And then here is the 14-inch with that larger sensor, the 1080p with a better lens. You guys let me know, does it look much better than the 13-inch model? Comment down below. And now let's compare the LCD display to the brand new mini LED ProMotion display. Right off the bat, we have a higher resolution. We have almost 6 million pixels compared to about 4 million pixels, so about 45% more pixels. And of course, we have the 120 Hertz refresh rate compared to 60. You can lower it if you want. Everything seems much more smooth. You can also go down to match your content to save battery life. Here's some slow motion clips of just that ProMotion smoothness. But what I'm most excited about testing is the HDR with 1000 nit brightness up to 1600 nits. So let's go ahead and open up an HDR movie. Right away, I could tell a difference in contrast. The LCD display, even though Apple's LCDs are great, it looks gray compared compared to pure black on the new 14-inch. And then those highlights on those cherries, man. All right, same thing here. We have our displays kicked up all the way, and then that allows the HDR to go into full effect. And as far as reflectivity, I don't know if the coatings are different. I don't know if you guys see me in that top camera, but this one does look a little bit shinier, but maybe it's just the fact that the blacks are so dark. Look at that, guys. You can see the gray there, the black there. Let's go ahead and shut off the lights so we get rid of any reflections. Wow, look at that, guys. Looking at this Endgame HDR trailer, massive difference in blacks with the lights off, and then those highlights are really popping on the 14-inch XDR display. And this isn't even Dolby Vision. This is just from YouTube. Overall, the colors look very similar, but we have better contrast with the new display, and the highlights do pop more. Look at that difference right there. Look how much brighter that highlight is, and then how much better the contrast is compared to the LCD display. Now, what about blooming? Well, if we go to a pure black screen with the highest, brightest highlights for our menu bars, you can definitely see it. Just like on the iPad, you have this glow around the white spots, but of course on the LCD display of the 13-inch, you have that blooming pretty much everywhere because it's a single backlit, not different zones. But as soon as the lights are on, all that blooming goes away. I might see a tiny hint, but pretty much at this distance, you can't see it. And I've watched a lot of movies on the iPad with this new display, and you really don't notice it, even in dark situations in real world use. So the screen upgrade is definitely a massive one. Now, the videos I played here, they're from YouTube. For some reason, my Apple TV app, it will not let me play anything with Dolby Vision, and that's what's actually going to give you those 1600 nits of peak, because on YouTube these videos are about 700 or so it definitely will get even better. Maybe we'll be able to look at that in a future video. And now let's finally get into performance. We have a lot of exciting tests that we are going to cover, but I want to start out with the SSD because Apple, after I think 5 or 6 years, now changed it to the latest and greatest. So let's start this out, and bam, right off the bat we have 2200 compared to 4144. And as far as the read speed, that is actually pretty low. I got 1800. Oh, there you go. There you go. It fixed it. I guess it's like speeding up. We have 1800 compared to 4770. I ran this a few more times so we could get the best results with each, and it looks like as far as the write, we have over twice as fast with the new 14-inch, and the read, it's 2.5 times faster. Now, of course, this is not hitting that 7.4 gigabytes a second that they mentioned. This is the base 512 SSD. Same thing over here, we got 512. So later, when we compare the 14-inch binned model to the unbinned with a 1 terabyte, we'll see if we get faster SSD speeds with that model. Now let's get into Geekbench 5. We're gonna see the performance of these new CPUs. Both have 16 gigs of RAM. It's interesting to see that now we actually see the gigahertz 3.22, slightly higher than the M1 for this M1 Pro, but let's go ahead and run our CPU benchmark. And I do want to say that this $1,800 13-inch MacBook Pro did have a newer 10th gen processor with G7 graphics, 2 gigahertz compared to the cheaper version, which had an older processor. All right, guys, we have our results, and look at this. Our single core went up by 47%. That's a significant difference in day-to-day simple tasks, but the multi-core from 4,400 to 9,884. That is almost 2.25 times faster. That is a massive difference. Of course, we're gonna see what that means in the real world. And now let's test out the graphics for a variety of compute tests. I know there are benchmarks out there for the higher end chips, but this is the base binned model. So I'm excited to see how well it does compared to the G7, the best Intel integrated graphics that had a good upgrade from the previous one. All right, guys, if you guys thought the previous result was a big upgrade, wait till you guys see this. We have 10,157, which is almost double compared to the previous generation that had an Intel, to 35,428. That's what, like 3.5 times faster? And this score right here, I believe, Vadim, am I right?
Yep.
Was this better than the 16-inch with dedicated graphics?
Yeah, man, it's actually better than the base 16-inch.
So Before, if you would have bought that 5300M just because you want better graphics, this thing has it. Now, this is a 14 core. Now, even though we have these huge differences, with Geekbench, they already mentioned that the scores are lower than they should be because this machine is just doing those tasks so quick, it's not ramping up the frequency high enough. So let's go ahead and close this down and open up GFX Bench. I'm gonna run the Aztec Ruins off-screen 1440p test because that one will not matter depending on the resolution to get a true result. Let's go ahead and see what this thing could do for gaming when it's optimized for metal. All right, guys, we have our score. Oh my goodness, Vadim, look at this.
What you got?
26.7, right, for metal gaming, 26 FPS, 0.7, it's a tough test, right? 147.258.
No way.
26, 147. So that really shows the unified architecture when you have something that's optimized. When the GPU is accessing that memory and the CPU, it's quick right there.
Yeah, this is the bin chip.
Yeah, you're right. This is the bin chip.
What?
That's over 5 times, so 5.5 times faster performance for metal optimized gaming. Now, will those games ever come? Vadim does seem to think so. I hope he's right. There are some optimized games, but geez Louise, that is a huge difference. From 3.5 overall compute to 5.5 now. All right, guys, it's time to bust out the thermal camera. Let's see what happens in terms of heat. I have Cinebench open, but before we start this and see how hot do these machines get, how loud do the fans get, what performance we get, I want to show something to you guys. I didn't want to mention it before, but at this point I have to plug in the Intel Mac because we are at 15% battery power once we were doing the install, setting everything up, shooting the previous part. Before we got into even the really heavy stuff, you guys see right there, and our 14-inch MacBook Pro, okay, it's 49%. It was just at 50, just dropped down to 49 compared to 15. Now, we didn't want to make this a battery life test because they weren't both fully charged. We're gonna do that for the next video. We'll start them at 100, but they started actually very close. I believe this one was at what, 88 or 89%? Yep. The other one is at 86 or 87%. They were very close. But you guys see the difference right here, even with the display that's brighter, running HDR and larger. All right, so now we also have an interesting little reveal here that Cinebench is giving us. It's saying that for multi-core, it's running at 3 gigahertz estimate, not 3.2 like the M1 ran for multi-core or for single core, but we will see what the truth is. Now first, I'm gonna take out my thermal camera and let's see the temperatures. It looks like we're getting 35 degrees Celsius at the hottest part, 36 right there for the Intel model, and our M1 right there, 32, and a much smaller hotspot. Now, as we go on, when we're running through this benchmark, we will see what happens in terms of fans and heat and all of that stuff. So let's go ahead and start our throttling test. Bam, we are started. I'm gonna go ahead and open up Intel Power Gadget here. Right away, you guys see we ran at 32, 41 watts, 39 watts, 40 right there. So it looks like the Intel CPU is sucking up 40 watts of power, at least until it's gonna have to slow down a bit. And we are running at about 3.3 gigahertz. Now over here, we don't have that same readout, but I did open up terminal here, and right there, CPU power 21.2 watts. So almost half the power at the start. And it looks like it is running at 3.228 gigahertz. So for now, we're getting full performance. And bam, you guys hear the fans right there? So we have the fans about a minute and a half in, those kicked up. They are running at right there, almost maximum, which is pretty high, 6,864 RPM and 6,300 RPM on the other side. So fans are maxed out and we're running at 26 watts. On the 14-inch M1, the fans are running at 2,400 right over there, check it out. They're not even 20, I don't even think they're 25%, maybe 20% or so. They are running nice and cool. Now, unfortunately, we don't have full breakdowns of temperatures yet. Here we're at 86 degrees now, cooled down a little bit. It was at 100 if you guys look at it right over here. Here, the highest temperature I see is 52 degrees. I don't know exactly what that's for, but it might be the CPU, who knows. All right, guys, so it's been 5 minutes. All the temps have settled in, wattage has settled in. Look, we got 41 or 42 degrees Celsius for the hot part of the Intel MacBook Pro, and the new one, wow, 42 degrees as well at the hottest spot. Now that spot is a lot smaller on it compared to the Intel model, but in terms of fans, these things have barely sped up. Right now, they're probably about 25% speed, still 55, 56 degrees Celsius compared to settling in at 85 degrees and then a clock speed of 3.0. So we are thermal throttled here. All right, guys, this is very interesting. Look at this. We're at 41 degrees Celsius, sometimes drops to 42. Look at the heat on the actual MacBook screen, and then look at the M1. 43, 44 degrees Celsius on the hottest spot. Look at those warm marks on the display. Now, that is because the vents are way more open on this 14-inch right up here. When you open the lid, all the vents have access here. On the 13-inch older design, it's blocked and it tries to put it out the back there. So this has a lot more airflow, which is probably why I can't even hear the fans. What I'm hearing is the fans on this one. They have to work way harder, whereas here now we're, maybe like a third of the fan speed, and it's running way cooler. All right, guys, we are finished. Not only did the 14-inch run way quieter, pretty much silent, and it also ran cooler, at least the CPUs itself. This whole area got quite hot though. The performance difference is substantial. We have on the 13-inch 4,348 points. It did thermal throttle down to like 2.8 by the end of it, compared to 9,472 points for the M1 Pro, the binned version that has 6 performance cores. That is 2.17 times more powerful, over double the performance, and that is a pretty good upgrade compared to the previous version that this one replaces. So now we know all the temps, we know fans and all of that. Let's close this down and get into real world performance. The first thing I'm gonna do is compile an Xcode project. Now, our friend Maxim Ermenko that created this project for us, he made us an easy way to test this to make sure we get consistent results. We have this terminal window open. That's gonna start the project, the compile. Bam, it is already running on it and compiling. Our CPUs are maxed out at both. Look at that, 97, 98 degrees Celsius on the Intel model. The fans are kicking up. Look at the M1 Pro. The fans are still completely shut off. CPUs is hitting 100. 47 degrees Celsius is the hottest point we have in the laptop. All right, the M1 Pro finished before the fans even spun up. Let's go ahead and wait for this one. The fans are full speed now on here. We'll give it a little bit longer. And bam, there we go. The Intel is finally ready. It can cool down now. What do you guys think? How long do you think it took? What's the difference? You guys can comment below. Our M1 took, well, let's start out with this one. This one took 309 seconds to compile that project compared to 111 seconds. That is almost 3 times faster for compiling, which is interesting because with the other tests that we did, the difference wasn't that big. So for a project like this, we have Xcode, it is optimized, we have the unified memory. You guys can see the performance difference right there, and right there, not including the other stuff, just upgrading from 1,800 bucks up to $2,000 for this new model. It's a little more, but look at the performance. And this is the binned version. And now for all of you photo editors out there, let's see how this does. I'm gonna start out in Lightroom Classic doing an HDR merge test, which always takes a while. Let's go ahead and import both of these. Bam, pretty quick on both. Let's create an HDR file from these 9 42 megapixel images from the A7R4. Right away, the M1 is going pretty quick. Here we have the menu bar. It's pretty much sitting. Let's just sit and wait here. Bam, that merged right there. Let's select it so it creates the final file. This thing is just sitting here. Bam, the M1 Pro is done. That's a tough test. That took 2 minutes and 15 seconds for the whole process. All right, and bam, right there, the Intel Mac is done. And look at that, the difference isn't as big as I expected. 2 minutes 15 on the M1 Pro and 3 minutes and 1 second on the Intel Mac, so not far behind. And now let's take that file and let's enhance it with Adobe Super Resolution. We have the estimate time is gonna show up here, and then we'll actually enhance it. Oh, look at that, Vadim. 2 minutes to enhance at least the estimate compared to 10 seconds. Okay, so let's see how long it actually takes. I'm gonna hit enhance, start my timer. So we went from 9 images into 1. Look at the HDR, it looks fantastic. And now let's go from 42 megapixels to what? I think it's double or quadruple, but let's see how long this takes. It's taken a little longer than it expected, and done right there. I guess I was a little over optimistic for the M1 Pro saying 10 seconds because it actually took 47.98, let's call it 48 seconds. Now we have a huge file, and the Intel, that thing is still going at 100 degrees Celsius. And bam, we are done with the Intel one. That one was more accurate for the estimate. 2 minutes, and pretty much 2 minutes, 15 seconds compared to 48 seconds. Now, I wonder if the HDR made it tougher because we have done this with the M1 at about 10 seconds, but this is a crazy file. This thing turned into an 166 megapixel image that's HDR'd, and it did it almost 3 times faster. And now let's export these 50 raw edited 42 megapixel files, our classic test, and see how fast the M1 Pro is. All right, wow. That was fast for the 14-inch MacBook Pro. Is that even faster, Vadim? Do you remember what my Mac Pro got? The 12-core, 196 gigs of RAM for this test? All right, so I guess it's not faster than that. That is still really fast, but it is faster than every other system that we tested that's a Mac system for a base 14-inch. All right, guys, well, we have the results for both. We have 1 minute and 44 seconds for the 14-inch and 3 minutes and 53 seconds for the Intel. So that is over twice as fast, about 2.25 times faster for this export. Very, very good improvements. And keep in mind, both have the same amount of RAM as well. So very good there. Let's go ahead and close this. And now let's get into video editing. I'm starting out with a standard project that most people work with, and even the older Intel MacBook still handled it really well because of the upgraded graphics that it got and how well Final Cut is optimized. But let's go ahead and see what happens when we export this 5-minute project that has 2 LUTs and film grain applied. And bam, we are exporting. We're gonna start the timer. This is HEVC. I've been recommending to export that for a bit now because of the quality. The M1 Pro's at 30% compared to 12 on the Intel. And what's interesting is that neither of these machines are actually maxed out. We have 30% CPU, 68 GPU compared to 16 CPU and 59 GPU on the M1 Pro. So the encoders are actually the limitation here. And we are using that T2 chip that's built into the Intel 13-inch MacBook Pro. And bam, we are done right there. And I have to mention that the M1 Pro is still on the original battery. We're at 14% now, whereas this thing, we plugged it in, we unplugged it, plugged it back in, just because the battery's draining so quick. Here, we're at 42%, so we got a while to wait. All right, the Intel is finished. Wow, okay, so that took 6 minutes and 19 seconds. And if this was an H.264 project, it would be like over 10 minutes, but with T2 encoders and the most powerful 13-inch Intel MacBook Pro that you could ever buy, we got 6 minutes and 19 seconds compared to 2 minutes and 35 seconds for the 14-inch base Pro. So that's what, Vadim, almost 3 times faster?
Yeah.
Or so, right around there. Now, I have to tell you guys that this project is actually limited to the encoders. The encoders for the M1 for Final Cut are limiting it, but Final Cut is not as optimized as DaVinci Resolve now, if you don't believe it or not, because this project would finish in about 1 minute and 30 with DaVinci Resolve, which is crazy. But we are gonna be doing a lot more video editing tests, a lot tougher ones in our upcoming videos, so make sure you guys are subscribed. But right now, what I have to do is get rid of that limitation of the encoders. We'll do something a little bit more tough with ProRes. This is ProRes 4K raw files here. We are playing both of them, and they're both playing back pretty smooth. I'm seeing some stuttering in the timeline here, so maybe it's not perfectly smooth, might be dropping some frames. But the CPU, wow, 72% compared to only 20 on this one. Yep, there is some stuttering here, even though this is very well optimized. So we are gonna take this 5-minute project as just simple color corrections, not a bunch of LUTs, and we are going to export it to ProRes 422. Let's see how they do. Oh my goodness. Oh, do you guys see that right there? 28%, 30%, 31%, 33, 35, it's skipping percentage points. 38, 41, I can't even speak right now. 45% compared to 5, 50% compared to 5%, 55%. Okay, our Mac is starting to die. Do we need to plug this thing in or should we wait? I don't know if it's gonna limit it at all, but it is flying. Okay, let's let it get finished. Bam, it is done. 1 minute and 7 seconds for a 5-minute project, ProRes RAW 4K. And here we're only at 13 seconds. Okay, well, this is where the power is really shown. When we're not limited by those H.265 encoders, that is, wow, that's a crazy difference. All right, guys, I can't wait any longer. We just hit 50% here. It took 5 minutes to hit 50%, and it's being pretty linear. So I will say, basically, this is gonna take 10 minutes for this 5-minute project, which is still not bad, but the M1 Pro 14-inch base model binned version took 1 minute and 7 seconds. That is pretty much 10 times faster when you're dealing with these ProRes RAW files. And you know what, guys? Believe it or not, my $15,000 Mac Pro with the $2,000 Afterburner card included in there took 1 minute and 47 seconds. 12 cores, 196 gigs of RAM, Afterburner card for $2,000, 1 minute and 47 seconds. This base model binned MacBook just did it in 1 minute and 7. That is absolute insanity. I don't know what the other ones are gonna do because they're just so much faster. We will see soon how fast those are. Well, my Mac Pro, if it's 13 grand instead of 15, you don't get that Afterburner card, takes 2 minutes and 45 seconds compared to 1 minute and 7. That means this thing is more than twice as fast if you don't buy the Afterburner. Craziness. All right, guys. Well, there we go. We're just gonna cancel this export. We're gonna save this Intel MacBook Pro. There you guys go. That was basically a slaughter fest. Not only did we have way more performance, sometimes twice the performance, sometimes 3 times or 5 times or even 10 times, but the battery life. This thing is basically twice as good, even though this is the 14-inch model, which doesn't have as good battery life as the 16-inch. So tomorrow, we will actually do an 100% unplug and then see real-world battery life, give you guys the full results. But if you still have an Intel MacBook Pro, it is worth upgrading. Better battery life, way better performance, better display, speakers. You guys saw the webcams, and fan noise is almost non-existent while you're getting that performance. So yes, it's $200 more for the 2021 compared to the 2020 Intel model, but it is well worth it. And this might be one of the biggest upgrades ever. You guys let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Remember, you need a comment and be subscribed if you guys want a chance to win not this crazy fast model, an even faster one with double the storage. So if you want that, just make sure you guys check that out, hit that subscribe button. And then with that, if you guys want to see short videos from us, we now have a YouTube Shorts channel page, TikTok, Instagram. Those are all linked down in the description below. Go ahead and check us out there for lots of quick, short content. And we will see you guys in the next video.